Hello, and welcome to DarkTrailz, the place where you are guided into mesmerizing stories designed to help you unwind and drift into sleep. Tonight, we journey into the hushed footsteps of a boy who can do something impossible. With a single snap of his fingers, the world around him stops. Not metaphorically, literally. People, leaves in the wind, raindrops mid-fall. All pause, all silent, all still, except for him. Picture this. You are in a classroom, the fluorescent lights buzzing faintly above. The clock ticks forward. Someone's pencil clatters to the floor. A cough from the back row. And then, snap, nothing. The hum dies. The air holds its breath. The room is a frozen painting, and only you are breathing. That is what happened to a boy named Ellis on a rainy Thursday, somewhere in Oregon, just before lunch. Now, this may sound like fiction, but there are stories, whispers, even scientific papers written in footnotes, buried in decades-old journals, that describe the theoretical implications of localized time disruption. And there is one curious article, published briefly in 1987 before being retracted, about a child in rural France who could desynchronize temporal perception with a percussive hand gesture. Scientists still argue whether it was a hoax or a glimpse. You probably won't survive this, at least not without questioning everything you thought you knew. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here, and if you are listening from somewhere special. Your bedroom in Buenos Aires, your dorm room in Prague, or your bunk bed in Ohio. Drop your local time in the comments. I would love to know when the world gets quiet for you. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let us ease into tonight's journey together. It begins, as many things do, in a moment of frustration. Ellis was 12 when he discovered it. Not discovered exactly, but rather stumbled into the truth of it, like someone reaching blindly into a drawer and grabbing something sharp and humming. It was a Wednesday, or was it Thursday? Doesn't matter now. What matters is this. He was late for lunch, and the cafeteria line was longer than his patience. He would been holding his tray, arms aching slightly, the line inching forward like molasses in winter. Kids were shouting. Chairs scraped the floor. Someone knocked over a carton of milk and nobody cleaned it. Ellis hated noise. Not just disliked it. Hated it. The way others hate spiders. Or the last question on a time test. It made his skin feel too tight. And so, without thinking, he snapped. A sharp, irritated snap of his fingers. Everything stopped. Forks mid-air. Mouths open but no sound. A girl laughing. Caught in a still giggle. The milk puddle paused mid-spread. As if the floor had decided it had absorbed enough. The fluorescent lights still buzzed faintly. But even that hum felt like an echo, not a presence. Ellis blinked, looked around, whispered, "Hello," no answer, just stillness, like the whole world had inhaled and forgotten how to exhale. At first, he thought he would gone deaf. Then he saw the air, still, not calm, still. Even the flutter of napkins had stopped mid-tremble. That is when the thrill hit. He took a step forward. Nothing moved. Another. Still frozen. He reached out to poke Jeremy, the boy in front of him who had been mid-complaint about the school's pizza ratio. Jeremy did not flinch. Ellis waved his hand in front of his face. Nothing. He laughed, out loud, and the sound of his own voice felt wrong. Too sharp, too alone. Took 2 hours for the snap to wear off. Though Ellis would not know it was time-based yet, he wandered the cafeteria, then the halls. Shouting, poking statues of students, peeking into classrooms. He drank from the water fountain, sat in the principal's chair, even opened the janitor's closet just because he was not allowed to. And then, it ended, just like that. Everyone moved again, mid-chew, mid-word. Jeremy finished his sentence without realizing. Ellis had been gone, mentally, for 2 hours. He dropped his tray. No one noticed. Ellis went home that day and did not speak during dinner. His mom thought he was upset about math class. His dad asked if he wanted more mashed potatoes. He shook his head. How do you tell someone that you have become a ghost in a world full of living statues? You do not. That night, Ellis stared at his fingers. He tried to snap again. It did not work. Tried once more. Still nothing. He lay in bed, heart thudding. Maybe it was a dream, but the next morning it happened again. Only this time it was not frustration. It was curiosity. He snapped in the living room while his dad was reading the paper. The rustling stopped mid-crinkle. The goldfish in its bowl hovered in place. His fins arrested in motion. Even the steam from his mother's coffee stopped swirling. Ellis reached out and touched the steam with his finger. It did not move, just hung there, like a silk curtain in zero gravity. He wandered the neighborhood that time, waved at cars mid-turn, watched birds suspended in flight. He even stepped into the grocery store and took a candy bar. Not to eat. He returned it, but just to see if he could. And then he returned, snapped again. This time it worked. He unsnapped the world. Nobody noticed a thing. Nobody, except the dog. His neighbor's golden retriever tilted its head when Ellis snapped back. Just a tilt. No bark. No growl. But enough to make Ellis pause. He stared at the dog. The dog blinked. Did you see that? He whispered. Of course, no one answered. But the dog did something odd. It wagged its tail only once, then lay down as if it had decided to let the moment go. Ellis felt a chill. That night, he made a list. He called it, Things That Stay Still. 1. People 2. Cars 3. Birds 4. Clouds 5. Milk 6. Dogs maybe not, and beside that, a second list. Things that feel wrong. 1. Dog's eyes 2. The way the air feels heavy 3. The silence. Not absence of noise, but too full of nothing 4. My own breath. It echoes 5. Me. I feel like a pin holding up the world. He did not tell anyone, but he did not stop either. Why would he? Imagine being the only moving part in a paused universe. You would try it again too, would not you? And so he kept snapping. Not always on purpose. Sometimes from boredom. Sometimes from fear. Sometimes because he had to. Because once you know the world can stop on command, you start to wonder when you should start it again. And who else might know what you can do? Because sooner or later you start to feel eyes in the stillness. Waiting. Watching. Something in the silence. Listening. The silence was addictive. Not the ordinary kind that comes after a power outage or when snow hushes a neighborhood. This silence was complete. It had texture. Weight. Like thick velvet draped over every sound the world was trying to make. And Ellis found himself craving it more and more. On Friday, he snapped his fingers in the middle of gym class. Balls hung mid-air. Coach Barnes was forever frozen in a whistle puff. The sweat on a student's forehead caught the sunlight and held it like glass. Ellis walked across the floor slowly, enjoying the click of his shoes even if no one else could hear. He sat in the bleachers. He watched them, all the other kids, laughing, reaching, shouting, only they were not. It was as if someone had pressed pause on a VHS tape. And Ellis was the only thing on fast forward. This time he stayed in the silence longer than ever, 45 minutes, maybe more. He walked outside, crossed the lot, climbed a tree near the parking circle. For the first time, he watched the wind without seeing it. The leaves did not rustle. The branches did not sway. It was wrong, and beautiful, and wrong again. Ellis began carrying a notebook everywhere. He tracked how long the stillness lasted, how tired he felt afterward, what things responded differently. He discovered something new that afternoon. A robin in the tree behind the cafeteria had its eyes open. But when he leaned in close, really close, the bird blinked. Not fully, just a flicker of the lower lid, like it was watching him back. Ellis wrote that down, then circled it 3 times. Later that night, he stared at that circle like it was a question no one had answered in 1,000 years. The next day, during lunch, he did not mean to snap. He just did. Reflex. The noise was too much. Someone had dropped a tray. Someone else was shouting about ketchup. He would barely touched his rice. Snap. Everyone froze. But Ellis did not move, and that is when he saw her. A girl. 2 tables away. Red sweater. Black hair in a single braid. Her fork was frozen halfway to her mouth. But her eyes moved. Slowly. They slid toward him like a camera lens refocusing. And then she blinked. Ellis gasped. He stood up so fast his chair clattered to the floor. But the world did not react. The silence held. She stared at him, calm, unblinking now. Ellis took a step. She followed with her eyes. Another step. Her head tilted. It was not fear. It was not surprise. It was more like recognition. When he finally reached her table, he whispered, "You can move." She did not answer. Just set her fork down slowly. Very slowly. It clinked against the tray in a sound so sharp, so real, felt like breaking glass. Then she spoke. "Not really, but I can see." Ellis's heart pounded. "What does that mean?" She looked around, then back at him. "It means I know what you are." He swallowed. "What am I?" "You are loud," she said. "To the in-between." The what? But she was already standing up. Carefully, like someone underwater trying not to ripple the surface. She took his hand. "Come on," she said. "We do not have long. It is never safe when it is this quiet." They left the cafeteria, walked past the frozen teachers, the janitor caught in a mop swipe, through the office, past the nurse who was forever applying ointment to a scraped knee, and out into the back hallway, where the lights always flickered. She stopped in front of the trophy case. "I am Lynn," she said. "Ellis." "I know," she replied. He stared. "Have we met?" "No," she said. "But I have been waiting. For me? For someone like you." Ellis felt dizzy. "What is this?" Lynn leaned in close. "It is not just your world that stops. It is all of them." That sentence rattled around his skull like a marble in a jar. He did not understand. Not yet, but he would. Eventually. For now, he only asked how. She pointed at the trophy case. "Watch." And then she did something strange. She did not snap. She did not speak. She simply raised one hand and held her palm flat against the glass. And the trophies inside. They moved. Not all at once. Just one. A silver cup with a dented handle. It rotated slowly, as if pushed by wind that did not exist. "Ellis," she whispered, "there are places the snap does not reach. Pockets. Loopholes. The in-between. If you stay too long, you find them, or they find you." Ellis looked into the glass, saw his reflection, and for just a moment, it did not match. His heart kicked hard in his chest. "I thought I was alone," he whispered. Lynn looked at him, her face soft, her voice barely there. "No one is ever really alone, not even when they stop the world." Then she smiled, and everything snapped back. The noise, the clatter. Someone yelled. Ellis dropped his chair again. Ellis blinked. Lynn was gone. No sign, no trace, only a red thread, dangling from the edge of the trophy case. He picked it up and felt a hum. That night, Ellis dreamed of eyes blinking in stillness, of birds frozen in air, of a hallway that kept stretching longer than it should. He woke with the red thread wrapped around his finger, and the echo of Lynn's voice in his ear. "We do not have long." The next morning, Ellis did not go to school. He pretended to be sick, which was not hard because his voice trembled when he lied, and his mom just pressed a cool hand to his forehead and told him to rest. She did not see the red thread still looped around his wrist like a secret bracelet. Ellis spent the day in his room trying to snap, but nothing worked. He stood in front of the mirror and whispered Lynn's name. He held the thread like it was a key, but the silence never came. Not the real kind. Just the ordinary hush of a quiet morning with birds outside and footsteps upstairs and the distant rattle of the dryer in the hallway. So he waited, watched the way the dust floated in the sunbeam near his desk, wondered if it ever froze too or just kept drifting like nothing could touch it. At noon, he opened his notebook and drew a map, not of places but of events. Snap 1, cafeteria. Snap 2, living room. Snap 3, gym. Snap 4, accidental. Lunchroom. Lynn appeared. He drew a circle around that one, labeled it in red. First contact. Then he flipped the page and wrote. What did she mean, all of them? Did she mean all worlds, all people, other dimensions, time loops? Did she mean my snap touches more than here? What happens if I snap too often? He did not like that question, but he did not cross it out. Instead, he added another. Is there anyone louder than me? That night, he slept with the thread under his pillow. And at 3:28 a.m., the world froze on its own. Ellis woke instantly. The silence rang in his ears like a scream muffled by velvet. He sat up. The digital clock beside his bed flickered, but did not change. 3.28. 3.28. 3.28. Outside his window, the tree branches stood still. Not swaying. Not quivering. Just paused. Ellis stood barefoot and tiptoed to the hallway. His parents' door was cracked. Inside they lay unmoving. His dad mid-snore. His mom with a book open across her chest. He crept down the stairs. The silence was heavier than usual. It pressed against his skin. His breath felt hot and sharp in the air. Then he saw the shadow. It did not belong to anything. Just hovered on the wall like an oil stain. Pulsed once, twice, then flattened. He followed it, past the kitchen, into the basement, where he never went. Because basements were supposed to smell like laundry and boxes and regret. But this one smelled like ozone, and ink, and something else, like burnt circuits and forgotten names. The shadow led him to the old water heater, then disappeared, and the red thread on his wrist tugged. Hard. Ellis looked down. It was glowing, only slightly, but it pulsed with a rhythm that did not match his heartbeat. He raised his hand, snapped. Nothing changed, because the world was already frozen. He whispered, Lynn, and she answered from behind the shelf. It is early. You were not supposed to wake yet. Ellis spun around. She stepped out slowly, still in her red sweater, but now she had circles under her eyes, and her braid was loose. Why is it frozen? He asked. I did not snap. Not all silence is yours, she said. Some silence finds you. He shivered. The shadow. It is not a shadow, Lynn said. It is a reminder that you are not alone, and not all alone is safe. She walked past him, touched the heater. It hissed softly like it had breath. This is one of the places, she said, where the in-between bleeds through. Ellis stared. Bleeds, you think time is a river. Lynn said, but it is more like a sheet, and sometimes it tears, when people like you keep snapping. I did not know. Now you do. Her voice softened. You can't stay long. Not tonight. Why, Lynn looked up at the basement ceiling like she could see through the floor, because it is almost 3.29. And that is when the man in the silver vest comes. Ellis's mouth went dry. Who is he? A reminder, she said again. That snapping has consequences. Is he dangerous? Lynn did not answer. Just grabbed his hand. If he finds you, he marks you, and if you are marked, you start to forget what is real. Ellis felt cold crawl up his spine. Forget, first your dreams, she said, then your rules, then your name. They ran up the stairs, quiet as ghosts, and just as afraid. The moment they crossed the threshold of his room, the clock blinked. 3.29. And the silence snapped like a cable under tension. The world exhaled. A bird outside chirped. The heater downstairs banged softly like an old heart resuming its beat. Lynn stood by his window. You will see him soon, she said. They always do. What do I do? Ellis whispered. She looked at him. Her eyes were sad. Don't snap unless you must. And if he offers you anything, don't take it. Then she pressed something into his palm. A small piece of glass. Circular. Cloudy. It shimmered faintly with colors he did not know how to name. What is this? A mirror, she said. But not for your face. Then she vanished. Just like that. Leaving behind only the thread, the mirror, and the faint smell of electricity. Ellis did not sleep the rest of the night, because he was not sure what part of the world he would wake into. Saturday came dressed in ordinary weather, but Ellis did not trust it. The The sky was gray in a way that was not stormy, just blank, like the clouds forgot how to feel. He walked to the park because he needed to move and think and not be inside the walls where time had melted hours before. The red thread was still around his wrist, though he would try to remove, twice. It always found its way back. The glass disc Lynn had given him now hung on a string under his shirt, and it felt warm sometimes, like it remembered things. The park was mostly empty. A man with a newspaper on a bench. A girl with her dad flying a kite. A dog chasing something invisible. Ellis sat under the sycamore tree near the pond. He did not snap. Not yet. Just listened. Tried to pretend everything was normal. But then he saw the duck. It floated in the water but left no ripple. Its wings were raised mid-flap. Ellis stood. Walked closer. The air smelled like tin and forgetting. A boy threw a frisbee, but it hung in the air too long. Just a second longer than it should. And Ellis knew. Time was bending. Not breaking, but bending like tired metal. He raised his fingers and snapped. The park froze. People mid-laugh, mid-blink, mid-chatter. Trees paused in mid-wind. But something was different. The silence did not come cleanly. It was jagged, like there were parts of the world resisting the freeze. The frisbee still spun in the air, vibrating gently like it knew it should not be there. Ellis reached for it, but before he could touch it, it dropped like a rock into the grass. Something was not right. He looked around. That is when he saw it. At the far end of the pond, just near the bike rack, a man, standing, not frozen, wearing a silver vest. His head tilted downward like he was inspecting a coin, but his body did not move, not swaying, not breathing. Ellis tried to blink, but his eyes were too dry. The man lifted his head slowly. His face was not strange. It was too normal, like someone who had memorized human expressions but had not felt them. His smile did not touch his eyes, which were the color of old paper. Ellis stepped back. The man did not. The red thread on his wrist tightened. The mirror under his shirt grew cold. He turned to run. The path warped under his feet. The sky flickered like a dying bulb. But he made it back to the sycamore. Snapped again. Hard. The world resumed. Ducks quacked. The frisbee rolled. People did not notice. No one saw the man. But Ellis knew he was still there. Somewhere just outside the curtain. That night Ellis did not sleep. Instead he dug into the old boxes in the garage. Found a book on physics. Another on clocks. He read about Einstein's theory of simultaneity. About how time does not move at the same rate everywhere. About observers and fixed points. He circled the sentence. If a moment is frozen for you, it is not necessarily frozen for another. Then he scribbled. Then who is moving when I am not? At 2:55 a.m., the mirror began to hum. Ellis stood up, walked to the window. Outside, the street light pulsed. He did not see the man, but his own shadow twisted the wrong direction. He closed the curtain, hard, snapped, froze the room. Everything stilled, except the mirror, which vibrated softly. It showed not his reflection but a hallway, long flickering, with doors too tall. At the end of the hallway, a girl, Lynn, reaching toward him. Then, darkness. The mirror went still. Ellis snapped again. Time returned, but nothing felt clean. At breakfast his mom said his eyes looked darker, that his voice sounded older. He did not argue, just asked her what time it was. She said 8:13, but the clocks all said 8:09. Ellis wrote that down. Time drift. For minutes. Next to it he added. Evidence of contamination. Unknown source. Red thread brightened briefly, then dulled. He pulled his hoodie over it. That afternoon at school he tried to talk to Lynn. But she was not in her seat. Wasn't in the lunchroom. Wasn't anywhere, until he froze the world again. Then she appeared, sitting on the roof of the gym, legs dangling over the edge. When he joined her, she did not say hi, just offered him a sandwich. You saw him, she said. Ellis nodded. He did not move. That is how you know he is watching. Why is he watching me? Lynn shrugged. You are the loudest thing in his world. Ellis chewed slowly. What does he want? Balance, she said. The more you snap, the more he wakes, the more he wakes, the more the world cracks. So I should stop eventually, Lynn said, or you will fall into the gap. What is in the gap? Everything that forgets how to finish. She handed him a notebook. Not hers, not his. It looked old, bound in leather. He opened it. The first page read, Snap 1034, then 1035. Names, locations, all crossed out. The handwriting was shaky. The ink bled like tears. At the bottom, a line etched in something red. I lost count. Lynn looked out at the frozen town. You do not want to lose count. Ellis closed the book. Was this yours? No, she said. But it belonged to someone I loved. Where is he now? Lynn did not answer. Just stood. Looked down at the gym roof. Whatever you do, don't snap inside a mirror. And do not snap during a dream. That is when the door opens. Ellis did not ask what door. He already knew. The day Ellis tried stopping a thunderstorm was the day he realized time had preferences. It was not just a background hum that went along with whatever he snapped. It had moods, limits, and sometimes it pushed back. It started on a Tuesday evening just before sunset. The clouds were thick and low, rumbling like a giant trying to clear its throat. Ellis was at the edge of the old soccer field, watching the first drops hit the dirt and vanish into steam. He had not meant to try anything, but the storm felt loud, not just in sound but in presence. The air was charged, the kind of charged that made your teeth feel like foil. So he snapped. Just like that, the world went still. Mostly, the raindrops froze midair, thousands of tiny pearls suspended in place. The wind halted, trees locked in strange angles like dancers, frozen mid-spin. But above, the clouds still moved, slowly, but undeniably, and that is when Ellis understood. Some parts of the world did not care about the snap. The storm rolled forward like a thought that could not be interrupted. Lightning forked across the sky. Too fast to freeze, too old to listen. Ellis watched in awe. The bolt struck the metal bleachers. The sound came late, muffled but real. He felt it in his ribs. Not pain, but pressure. And the mirror under his shirt turned hot, almost too hot to touch. He pulled it out. It did not show his reflection. It showed a single eye. Not human, not alien, just enormous. Watching, Ellis snapped again. Hard. The world resumed. Rain crashed down. Lightning struck again. People screamed from the school steps. The moment ended, but not for Ellis. He felt a ringing in his spine, like the echo of a song he had not heard yet. He did not sleep that night. Instead, he tried again. In the backyard, a barking dog 3 houses over had been howling. For hours. It was not sick, just loud, frustrated, restless. Ellis stood on the grass and snapped. Everything paused. Even the leaves. Even the clock in the hallway. But the dog kept barking. His mouth did not move. But the sound continued. Dull. Like it was traveling through wet wood. Ellis walked to the fence. Climbed it. Stood under the tree where the dog sat frozen. Only it was not. Its eyes tracked him. His tail twitched. The sound faded. But the dog growled. Deep. Resonant. Ellis knelt. Can you hear me? The dog blinked. Snarled again. But its body did not move. Just its voice. Then, for no reason Ellis could explain, the dog said a word. Not a bark. A word. The sound came from its throat. But it was not the dog's voice. It was Lynn's. Distant. Fractured. Like a recording slowed and reversed. Ellis snapped back. The world resumed. The dog barked again. Normal. Frenzied. But it did not look at him. It looked past him. Ellis turned. The man in the silver vest stood halfway down the street. This time he was walking. Not fast, but steady. Like gravity had changed for him. And every step bent the sidewalk beneath his feet. Ellis backed away. Ran inside. Locked the door. The mirror buzzed in his palm. This time it did not show Lynn. It showed pages. Flipping. over and over, fast. Each one had a number, a date, a name, all crossed out. Then the mirror cracked, a hairline fracture slicing its face. Ellis did not drop it. He pressed it to his chest. "What do you want from me?" The mirror dimmed, then whispered, "Less." The voice was not Lynn's, wasn't the dog's. It was his own, but older, tired, broken. That is when Ellis wrote his third list. Things that do not stop. 1. Lightning. 2. Storms. 3. The man in the vest. 4. Dogs. Maybe. 5. Me. Someday. Beneath that he added a question. What happens if I can't stop snapping? The next morning the hallway at school had a different smell. Not bad, just strange, like rust and fog. The clock outside homeroom ticked backwards once. Just once, but enough to notice. And when Ellis blinked, the hallway was empty. He had not snapped, but time had moved without him. Lynn appeared beside the lockers. "They are getting shorter," she said. "The gaps between events." "I did not do anything. Doesn't matter." She handed him a note. It was written on graph paper. Sharp, clean, old. The ink was red. It said, "You are already counted. The rest is subtraction." Ellis folded it. "Who writes these? No one remembers," Lynn said. "But they arrive when it is almost too late. For what to choose?" That afternoon Ellis sat under the bleachers. Notebook open. Mirror beside him. He wrote the word choose over and over, then circled it. The mirror flickered, showed a stairwell, then a red door, then a key, just hovering, waiting. He closed the notebook, said the word out loud, "Choose," and the world tilted. The hallway was gone, replaced by something wider, deeper, like a memory that grew teeth. Ellis stood at the top of the red stairwell from the mirror. It spiraled downward in impossible ways. The walls were covered in old wallpaper that peeled like sunburnt skin. The lights overhead flickered in pulses that did not match any rhythm he knew. He did not remember snapping, but he was there, alone, or so he thought. His steps made no sound. Even his breath was dampened as if the air did not want to carry it. He reached the first landing and found a small table. On it sat a teacup, still steaming, but nothing else around it. Ellis stared. The steam was not rising. It hovered like frozen smoke. He touched it, and it felt solid, like cotton. He moved on. Around the second bend, the walls began to change. First pictures appeared, portraits of people he almost recognized. Not quite his parents, not quite his teachers, almost, but not. They smiled in ways that did not reach their eyes. Their hands held objects. A key, a mirror, a bell, a spool of red thread. One of them had a mouth that looked just like Lynn's. The lips parted slightly, and Ellis swore he saw the portrait breathe. He ran, faster, downward. The walls tightened, the lights dimmed, and then he heard it, a whisper, faint, coming from beneath his own feet. He stopped, held still, listened. It was a voice, but it was not speaking words. It was humming, like a lullaby no one had sung in years. He stepped slower now, every turn sharper, every light more distant, and at the bottom, he found the room. It was not large, but it had no corners. The walls curved, like the inside of a glass dome. And in the center, a girl sat cross-legged, eyes closed, floating slightly above the ground. Not Lynn, younger, pale, wearing a dress made of paper. On the floor beside her, a stack of notebooks. Ellis stepped inside. The hum grew louder, but the girl did not move. Her hands twitched, as if counting. 1, 2, 3, 4, snap. 5, 6, 7, 8, snap. It was not loud, but it carried through the bones of the room. He stepped closer. Hello, her eyes opened. They were not eyes. They were voids filled with echoes. You made it, she said. Her voice was too, hers, and someone behind her. Where is this? Ellis whispered. The before, she said. The last silence. I did not mean to come. You chose, she said, even without knowing. She reached into the stack of notebooks, pulled one. It was his handwriting, the list from the backyard, the dogs, the lightning, the mirror. How did you get this? She did not answer, just flipped the pages. And on the last one, his name, written 37 times, each line slightly different. He reached for the book, but she pulled it back. You can't take it yet, she said. You have not heard the echoes. What echoes? The room darkened, then lit again, slowly. This time the hum became words. He heard his own voice. I won't snap again. Then another. I did not know it would matter. Then another. Lynn, please, come back. The voices overlapped, shouted, whispered, laughed. All versions of him, all desperate. These are your might-have-beens, she said, and your will-be's. Every time you snap, you make another path. Another Ellis. That is not possible. Scientists still argue whether time branches or loops, she said, but they never ask if it listens. Does it? She smiled. Only to the lonely. Ellis stepped back. I need to go. You can't leave until you choose. Choose what, which you stays. Behind her, the wall rippled. Images formed. Ellis riding a bike. Ellis hiding under his bed. Ellis older.
Taller.
Ellis with silver eyes. One version turned and looked straight at him. It mouthed something. He is still coming. Who? The man in the silver vest, the girl said. He walks outside of stories, but he follows the loud ones. I do not want to be loud. Then be still, she said. But that is a choice too. Ellis turned, faced the stairs. They were gone. Only a mirror remained. Tall, arched, cracked. Is that the way out? It is one way, she said. But it remembers you. Ellis stepped forward, looked into the glass. His reflection blinked, then looked away. That terrified him more than anything. He placed his hand on the surface. Felt warm, then cold, then nothing. And then the hum stopped. The room was empty, the girl gone. The notebooks vanished. Only the mirror remained. And when Ellis turned around, he was in the hallway again. His school. Everything normal, except the clock ticked twice. Backward, then forward. And Lynn stood beside the lockers. You were not supposed to go yet, she said. I did not mean to, but you did. What was that place? Some call it the before, Lynn said. Others call it the pre-snap. I just call it dangerous. Is that where he lives? Lynn shook her head. He does not live. He collects. What does he collect? People who lose their way out. Ellis touched his chest. The mirror was cracked. The thread around his wrist was fraying. He looked at Lynn. Am I breaking? Not yet, she said. But you are getting louder. Can I stop? Lynn did not answer. Just looked at the hallway. Do you hear that? Ellis paused, then nodded. A soft whisper. Not words, just breath. From every locker, every wall, even the floor. A sound he had not noticed before. The sound of things that were not frozen, not awake, but waiting, watching, and maybe wanting. Lynn did not go to class that day, and neither did Ellis. Instead, they walked the back halls of the school where the paint peeled in long flakes and the ceiling panels sagged like tired eyelids. Lynn moved with careful steps, her fingers trailing along the lockers like she was tracing the edge of something sharp and invisible. Ellis stayed close behind, the cracked mirror cold against his chest, the red thread now split in two like it was fraying from the inside out. At the end of the hall was a door Ellis had never seen before. It did not match the others. This one had no handle, just a round metal plate with a single indentation in the center. Lynn touched it. The plate pulsed once, then opened inward without a sound. Inside was a room filled with screens. Dozens. Hundreds. All black and white, each showing frozen images. Some were of classrooms, some of kitchens, one of an empty hospital hallway, another of a girl reading under a tree. Ellis stepped inside slowly. The air was cooler, drier, like a library in the middle of winter. What is this place? He asked. These are the blinkers, Lynn said. People like me, like you. Lynn nodded. When the world freezes, most stay frozen. But some do not. Not fully. We blink, shift, drift. We are not supposed to exist. But we do. Ellis walked past the screens. Each showed someone mid-movement, but something was always wrong. A tear rolling down a cheek that should have paused. A pencil still spinning mid-air. A boy mid-yawn whose eyes were wide open. Do they know? Ellis asked. Most do not, Lynn said. They think they are dreaming. We're glitching. We're losing time. Some call it déjà vu. Others blame migraines. She paused. But we know better. How did you find out? I blinked during a snap, she said. And the silence looked back. What did it say? Nothing, she whispered. But I heard myself screaming. Ellis stared at the screens. What are they for? To watch. To listen. To keep track. Who is watching? Lynn did not answer. But Ellis already knew. The man in the silver vest. She led him to the far end of the room where a single screen glowed faint blue. It showed a boy standing under a streetlight. Alone. Is that me? Ellis asked. Not yet, Lynn said. But soon. What is he doing? Waiting, she said. For the snap that won't stop. Ellis backed away. I do not want that. Then learn the rules, she said. She handed him another notebook. This one smaller. Leather worn. Smelled of dust and forgotten pencils. The first page read. Rules for blinkers. 1. Never snap when you feel watched. 2. Never blink twice in the silence. 3. If the mirror shows your back, run. 4. If the thread breaks, you forget who you were. 5. If you see yourself in frozen time, do not speak. Ellis read each line twice, then closed the notebook and held it tight. Why me? He asked. Why do I have this? No one knows, Lynn said. Some say it is trauma. Some say it is genetics. Some say the first snap chose you. Is there a cure? Lynn looked at him. Would you take it? Ellis did not answer, because he did not know. That night at home, the red thread snapped. Just a quiet pop like a rubber band giving up. He watched it fall to the floor and vanish into the carpet. The mirror flickered, then showed his bedroom from a different angle. One he could not see. In the corner of the frame. A foot, just a foot. Polished shoe. Silver fabric above it. Ellis dropped the mirror. It did not shatter, just kept glowing faint blue. Then it went dark. He did not sleep. In the morning his reflection did not follow his movements exactly. It was off. Half a second. A hesitation, like it had to decide which way to turn. At school Lynn was not there. Not in the halls. Not in the screens. Not in the silence. Ellis snapped 3 times that day. Once during math. Once in the bathroom. Once under the stairs. Each time looking for her. Each time the world froze like it was waiting for him to make a mistake. The last time he heard the sound again. The soft ticking. Like a watch with a heartbeat. He followed it to the boiler room. A place students were not allowed. The door was locked, but he was tired of rules. Inside it was warm and wrong. Pipes hummed. Lights flickered. And on the wall, a single photograph. A girl in a red sweater, smiling, holding a bell. Lynn, younger. The photo was dated 1994. Ellis stepped back. That was not possible. She was his age, maybe 14, but the photo was old. Yellowed, corners curling. The caption beneath it read, Lost in time, recovered, briefly. Ellis felt the hum behind him, turned slowly. The man in the silver vest was there, not moving, just existing, like gravity bent toward him. Ellis snapped without thinking. The world froze, but the man did not. He tilted his head, smiled, and spoke. For the first time, you are learning. Ellis could not breathe, couldn't blink. What do you want? The man did not answer, just held out a hand. In his palm, a piece of the red thread, frayed. Smoking. Ellis backed away. No. The man lowered his hand, turned, and walked into the wall. Gone. Ellis snapped again. The world resumed, but nothing felt resumed. Everything was slightly off. People blinked too slowly. The air had a delay. He left school early. Walked home in silence. Wrote in the notebook. Under the rules he added a line. 6. If he offers you anything, even something you lost. Do not take it. Then he stared at the cracked mirror and whispered, "Where are you, Lynn?" The mirror did not answer, but the hallway light flickered twice, then stopped. That night, Ellis waited until the house was quiet. Not just bedtime quiet, but truly still. When even the refrigerator hum seemed reluctant. When the shadows on the ceiling felt like they had pinions. He wrapped himself in a blanket and sat in front of the mirror. The crack had spread. Thin veins like lightning frozen in glass. He tapped it gently. Nothing. He whispered Lynn's name. Nothing. Then he did what he told himself he would not do. He snapped. The world froze. The fan in the corner stopped mid-turn. The air conditioner paused mid-breath. But the mirror blinked. Once, like a camera shutter. Then it glowed. A soft pale light. Images formed slowly. First the hallway again. Then a door. Red. Familiar. Then Lynn. Sitting in front of a chalkboard covered in numbers. She looked up. Straight into the mirror. "You are not supposed to be here," she said. Ellis leaned forward. "Where is here?" "A pocket," she said. "Between events. A storage room for skipped seconds." "Why did you leave?" "I did not," she said. "I was paused." Paused. Someone snapped and did not finish. Ellis blinked. "Not me." "No," she said. "Someone older. Someone louder." The mirror rippled. Lynn reached out. Her hand passed through the glass. Touched his cheek. It was cold. Then warm. Then gone. "You have to learn the rules beneath the rules," she whispered. "The one's time does not like being written down." "How?" "You go where the snap began," she said. "You go to the first silence." The mirror shattered. Not loudly, but clean. The pieces fell like leaves. Ellis did not move, because behind the mirror, inside the wall, was a map, drawn in chalk. Old, faded, but clear enough. Lines led to names, events, rooms he knew, places he had not seen since second grade. A hallway that was removed during renovations. A clock tower that was condemned. A janitor closet that never opened. All connected by red thread drawn in loops and knots. At the center, a circle, labeled, the Room of Rules. Ellis traced the path with his finger. It started under the gym, past the boiler, into the old wing. He packed a flashlight, a notebook, the piece of mirror, the broken thread, and left. The school was closed, but the side gate never locked properly. He slipped through, moved like someone walking underwater, every shadow heavier than it should be. The old wing was colder, always had been, even before all this. He found the door by accident. It looked like part of the wall, but the knob was warm, too warm. He opened it. Stairs led down, not stone, not wood, but something smooth, like bone. The flashlight flickered, refused to stay steady. The walls were covered in writing. Not English, not any language he knew, just symbols, repeated over and over. He reached the bottom and found a hall lined with clocks. None of them ticked, but they all moved, in different directions. One forward, one backward, one skipped every 5th second. Another moved in perfect sync with his heartbeat. He reached a door. It had no handle, just a keyhole. He did not have a key, but the red thread in his pocket pulsed, glowed. He pressed it into the keyhole. It vanished. The door opened. The Room of Rules was not what he expected. It was a library, small, circular, every book the same size, same color, no titles, just numbers, 011, 174, 328, and one book sitting open on a pedestal. It read, Rule 0. He stepped forward. Read the first line. If you find this place, you were always meant to. The second line. But that does not mean you belong. The third line. Snap only with intention. Because the world is listening. He flipped the page. The rest was blank. He waited. The room side. Books shifted. One fell from a shelf. He picked it up. Opened it. It was filled with notes. Drawings. Memories. None of them his. Someone else's story. Someone who snapped too much. Lost too much. Someone who forgot how to unsnap. Ellis sat down, began to read. Hours passed, or seconds. It was hard to tell. But when he looked up, the man in the silver vest was standing in the doorway. Not moving, not smiling, just watching. Ellis stood, closed the book. "You can't be here," he said. The man tilted his head, said nothing. "You are not allowed," Ellis whispered. "This is the room of rules." The man stepped inside. The books did not fall. They did not blink. They did not resist. Ellis backed away. "Why are you here?" the man finally spoke. "Because you are." The voice was layered. 1,000 voices inside one. Ellis held up the broken piece of mirror. It glowed. The man stopped, just for a second. "What do you want from me, your echo?" the man said. "The part of you that touches time. You can't have it. You already gave it." The man said, "The first time you snapped." Ellis's hand trembled. "Why me?" "Because you were alone," the man said. "And time loves the lonely." Ellis screamed. Not loudly, just enough. Enough to echo. The books vibrated. The floor shifted. And Lynn stepped from the shelves, her sweater darker, her eyes glowing faintly. "He is not yours," she said. The man did not move. "He is everyone's." "Then he is no one's," Lynn said. She reached for Ellis, pulled him close. "Run," she whispered. "Now." Ellis snapped. The world held. The man froze, but not fully. His shadow moved. His eyes followed. Ellis and Lynn ran, back through the clocks, up the stairs, into the old wing, out into the night. They did not speak until they reached the edge of the soccer field. "What was that?" Ellis gasped. "A trespasser," Lynn said. "In a place where even time has rules." "Why did not the room stop him?" "Because he is older than the room," she said. "He wrote Rule 0. Ellis stared. "That means?" "It means he was the first," she said. "The first snapper. What happened to him, he never stopped." Ellis could not sleep, even when he tried to pretend, lying in bed with the covers pulled high and his eyes shut tight. His thoughts buzzed louder than any silence he would ever snapped into. The idea that someone had been snapping long before him, that the man in the silver vest was not just a follower, but the first, that somewhere, once upon a moment, someone else had chosen to stop time and never stopped again. He turned over. The cracked mirror lay under his pillow, cool against his temple. The notebook was open beside him. On it, in Lynn's handwriting, a new phrase had appeared since their escape. "Echoes bend faster when watched." He did not understand it. Not yet. But the sentence shimmered faintly like it had been written with ink made from lightning. The next morning, the clocks in the house were all wrong. Each one drifted. Kitchen clock was 10 minutes fast. Microwave slow by 4. The digital alarm blinking nonsense. 7:06 His parents did not seem to notice. His dad asked about breakfast. Half a slice of toast already chewed mid-sentence. His mom hummed a song that Ellis swore had not been written yet. He left the house early. School did not matter anymore. Only answers. Lynn met him at the edge of the woods behind the science wing. Her eyes looked tired but focused. She held out a folded page. It was old, yellowed, torn at the corners. A page from a book no longer bound. "What is this?" he asked. "Evidence," she said. "Of the others." The page showed a sketch. A circle with lines branching off in spirals. Each spiral had a name. Each name was followed by a number. And all the numbers ended the same. 0. These were other snappers, Lynn said. Other kids, some. She pointed to one name, Ezra. Dated 1937. Next to it, a note. Made the birds disappear for a week. Then another. Marisol. 1962. Split a shadow into 2. Ellis traced the paper with his finger. Did they all vanish? Lynn nodded. Most of them. One of them became Rule 0. Ellis folded the page. So how do I not end up like them? You do not break the map, Lynn said. What map? She pointed to the red thread still tied around his wrist. It had started glowing again, dimly, like an ember trying not to die. It is not decoration, she said. It is a timeline, but it broke. No, afraid. That is different. Ellis stared at the thread. So what do I do? You follow it, she said. Where Lynn looked up, to the man who tried to stop snapping. They spent the afternoon hiking into the oldest part of the forest where the school's old power lines ended and the trees grew in spirals too tight to be natural. The sky overhead dimmed unnaturally. It was not cloudy, just dull, like the light had forgotten its job. Lynn led the way with confidence, as if her feet remembered a path her memory did not. They came to a clearing with a concrete bench cracked down the middle, and a rusted sign half buried in the moss. The sign read, Testing Site 17. Beneath it, faintly etched, Horology Division. Ellis blinked. This used to be a clock lab. Lynn nodded. During the war, they built devices to distort time. Said it was to study relativity. Was it? No, she said. It was to find people like us. She knelt and placed her hand on the ground. The earth beneath them pulsed once, a low vibration like a heart trying to remember its beat. Then a hatch appeared, circular, sealed with a metal ring. Lynn pried it open. The air that rushed out was cold and dry. They climbed down. The ladder descended into a long tunnel lined with old cables and writing in chalk. Most of it unreadable. No reflection at dusk. If it speaks, do not listen. At the end of the tunnel, a door. Metal. No handle. But in the center, a handprint. Ellis reached for it. The red thread on his wrist glowed, bright, as his fingers touched the panel. The door hissed and opened. Inside, a room like a planetarium. A dome filled with ticking. Not clocks, just ticking. Each tick slightly out of sync. In the center, a figure sat in a chair made of wires. His hair was white, skin pale, clothes stitched from gray fabric. And his vest, silver, not polished, but dulled, as if time had sanded it down. He opened his eyes. They were mirrors. Ellis froze. The man did not move. Are you him? Ellis whispered. The man smiled faintly. No. His voice was soft, dry. He was before me. I only tried to be after. What does that mean? It means, the man said, that the snapping never starts with us. It waits, then chooses. Why me? Ellis asked. The man looked sad. Because you noticed. What happens if I stop? You lose the thread, he said. And then the silence notices you. Lynn stepped forward. We need to know how to undo it. The man tilted his head. You do not undo. You harmonize. He raised a hand, pointed to the wires around the dome. Each wire hummed faintly, each thread a path, each echo a fork. If you snap too hard, you snap yourself in half. So how do I stay whole? Ellis asked. The man stood slowly. Every motion creaked like ancient branches. You must find your center snap, he said. The one that chose you, where your shadow first misbehaved. Ellis blinked. That does not make sense. The man touched his shoulder. Neither does silence. But it knows you, and it waits for you to slip. What happens if I do? The man did not answer. Just sat back down, closed his eyes. His breath stilled, and all the ticking in the room stopped. Every sound paused. Lynn turned to Ellis. Your center snap, she said. Do you know what it was? Ellis nodded. I think so. Where my old house, he said. Before we moved. She looked at him. Then that is where we go next. They climbed back up the ladder. The sun was already setting. The trees leaned in closer, and far behind them, something ticked once, then went silent. They did not go back to school the next day. There were no more classes worth sitting through when time itself was unraveling. Ellis and Lynn took the first bus out of town, heading east toward the suburb where Ellis had lived until he was 8. The bus was mostly empty. An old woman reading a book that never seemed to change pages. A boy playing a handheld game where the sound effects lagged half a second behind the visuals. Ellis watched the power lines flash past the window. Occasionally one would skip. Not blur, not rush. Skip, like a missing frame. He kept his hands in his lap, afraid to snap. Lynn sat beside him in silence, the notebook open on her knees. She was drawing again. This time, not symbols, just maps. Circles within circles. Points labeled with names that did not belong to. Anyone they knew. Or maybe they did. Maybe they had not met them yet. How far is your old house? Lynn asked. About 4 hours, Ellis said. If nothing skips. Lynn nodded. It will. And it did. At mile 117 the bus did not turn. It curved left when the road only offered a right. No one noticed. Except them. The landscape outside changed. Forests became flat plains. Buildings flickered. Street signs blurred. The sky dimmed though it was only noon. Ellis gripped the seat. This is not right. Lynn reached into her bag. Pulled out the piece of the mirror. It was glowing again. Faint green. We are not on the bus anymore, she said. We are in the in-between. How do we get out? Lynn stood. Walked to the front. The driver did not move. Didn't blink. Frozen. She snapped. The world did not change. She frowned. It is anchored. Ellis joined her. By what? By the map, she said. Something rewrote the route. She turned to the passengers. All still. All breathing. But wrong. Too still. The woman with the book had no shadow. The boy's game console was displaying old clock. Faces. Ticking backward. Lynn pointed to the emergency exit. That is not a door. That is a choice. What kind? The kind that lets you skip forward. Or backward. Ellis reached for the handle. The thread on his wrist burned. I do not want to go backward. Then choose forward, she said. He pulled. The door opened. But outside was not a road. It was a library. Massive. Endless. Floating midair. Bookshelves spiraled upward and downward into a mist of stars and fog. Each shelf rotated slowly, and every book pulsed like a heartbeat. Where are we? Ellis asked. A library beneath the map, Lynn said. Built from echoes. She stepped through. He followed. The moment his foot landed, the bus vanished. No noise. Just gone. The air smelled like ink and ozone. Pages whispered without being turned. They walked along a path of floating wooden planks. Gravity shifted beneath them, but never broke. These books, Lynn said, are not written. They are remembered. By who? By the world, she said. And by us. Ellis picked one. It was blank. Then slowly, letters bled through. It read, Ellis, age 6. First question, why does time only go forward? Then another, Ellis, age 7. First suspicion, why did the kitchen clock skip lunch? Then another, Ellis, age 8. First silence. The moment the world forgot to move. This is it, he whispered. My center snap. Lynn touched his shoulder. Then this is your library. What do I do? You find the unbound book, she said. The one still writing. They searched. Past books with names he did not recognize but somehow mourned. One called Ava. One called Theo. One called 011. Then, on a shelf near the edge, floating between 2 turning staircases, they found it. A book with no spine. No title. Just pulsing pages. Ellis opened it. It was blank. Then a single word appeared. Remember. He blinked. What am I supposed to remember? The page flipped. Another word. Home. The next. Kitchen. The next. Drawer. The next. Snap. 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 A flood of images filled his mind. He was 8. He was standing on a stool in the kitchen, looking for a spoon, angry because the drawer jammed. He had shouted, snapped his fingers. The world had paused. No sound. No breath. Just the hum of the fridge stopping mid-cycle. His first snap. He would forgotten it completely. I was so young, he whispered. It does not matter, Lynn said. Chose you anyway. Why now? Why again? Because the longer it waits, the louder the silence gets. Ellis closed the book. What happens if I finish this story? Lynn did not answer. The floor beneath them trembled. A wave of static rolled through the shelves. Books flapped like birds. Then, from below, the man in the silver vest rose slowly. Not climbing. Floating. His arms at his sides. His head tilted slightly. Found you, he said. Lynn grabbed Ellis. Snap us out. Where? Anywhere but here. Ellis raised his hand. Snapped. Nothing. The man smiled. This library does not freeze, he said. Because I remember every word. Lynn reached into her pocket, pulled a bell, small, rusted. She rang it once. The sound cracked the air. Books stilled. Shelves stopped spinning. The man twitched. "That won't last," he said. "No," Lynn said, "but it will buy us a page." She threw the bell into the mist, grabbed Ellis's hand. "Think of a door," she whispered. "Any door." Ellis closed his eyes, thought of his old bedroom door. Blue, slightly chipped, handle loose. The door appeared, hanging in space. Lynn pushed it open, shoved Ellis through. He fell, not fast, not hard, but deep. Landed in his old kitchen. "Don't," he whispered to his younger self. "Don't snap." But the boy did. The silence fell. Ellis blinked. He was 16 again, standing in the same kitchen. But now he remembered everything. All the snaps, all the silences, all the almosts. Lynn stepped through the back door. "Did it work?" Ellis nodded. "I found the center." She looked behind her. "Then it is time for the unraveling." "Of what?" "The map," she said. "We can't just follow it anymore. We have to rewrite it." "How?" Lynn handed him the book. His book, now half filled with memories he did not remember writing. "With each choice," she said, "and no more accidental snaps." "Can I still snap at all?" "Yes," she said, "but only once more, and only when you are ready to disappear." Ellis did not speak for a long time after that. He sat on the floor of the old kitchen while Lynn leaned against the doorframe, watching the sun rise outside like it was a stranger she had not seen in years. The light in the room felt real for once. It did not flicker. It did not buzz. It simply arrived, gentle and certain. He turned the book over in his hands. The one that now carried fragments of his life across pages that wrote themselves when he was not looking. On page 37, a new entry had appeared. It said, "The last stairwell opens only when you are not looking for it." Ellis looked up. "What does that mean?" Lynn shrugged. "Most of the rules do not make sense until they matter. Sometimes not even then. Are there other stairwells?" "Thousands," she said, "but only one leads to the center line." "Is that where Rule 0 is?" Lynn's eyes darkened slightly. "No, that is where Rule 0 was." Ellis stood. "Then let us go." "We do not choose the stairwell," she said. "Chooses us." "So what do we do in the meantime?" Lynn opened the back door. "We keep moving forward. The map hates stillness." They left the house quietly. The neighborhood was unchanged, but not the same. Every third car was slightly transparent. A mailbox flickered between stiles. One child playing on the sidewalk turned to look at them and blinked twice in reverse. Lynn did not stop walking. Neither did Ellis. After 6 blocks, the world began to slow. Not freeze, just hesitate. A cat mid-pounce paused too long. Before it landed, a newspaper drifted down but never touched the ground. Lynn checked her watch. It spun without ticking. "The stairwell's close," she said. "How can you tell?" She pointed to the sidewalk. Cracks in the pavement began curling into spiral patterns. It always leaves a scar. At the corner of a cul-de-sac with no name, there was a house that did not used to be there. It was old, Victorian, covered in vines that breathed softly in and out. No windows, just a single wooden door, slightly ajar. They stepped inside. The floorboards did not creak. They whispered. The walls were papered in maps. None of them matched. One showed stars that had no names. Another was a subway route with stops, called if, then, and maybe. Lynn placed her hand on the staircase. It groaned, then bent downward. Not in angle, in shape. It corkscrewed impossibly into the basement. "We found it," she said. "Or it found us." They descended in silence. Each step echoed behind them 3 times. Once soft, once sharp, once hollow. At the bottom was a circular room, not unlike the Room of Rules. But this one had no books, only mirrors, dozens, each cracked, each reflecting something slightly wrong. Ellis stared into one. It showed him older,
Taller.
but with the silver vest. Another mirror showed him without a face. Another showed him blinking out of existence frame by frame. "Don't touch them," Lynn warned. "They are futures that have not said yes yet." In the center of the room was a pedestal. No writing, just an object. Compass. Spinning. Ellis stepped closer. The needle trembled, then stopped, pointing not north, but up. Lynn raised her eyes to the ceiling. There was nothing there, until she blinked. Then the ceiling blinked back. A trapdoor opened. A rope ladder fell. "That is the next stairwell," she said. "How many more until we reach the hinge?" she said. The pivot point of every snap. They climbed. The higher they went, the more the air shimmered. By the time they emerged, the world had changed again. They stood in a hallway made of polished stone. No doors, just a long corridor that curved gently in all directions. The walls pulsed softly with a glow that felt like breath. On the floor, more spirals, and writing, not in chalk, but etched into the stone. "You are not the first. You are not the last. But you may be the only one who remembers." They walked. The corridor narrowed, became tighter. The glow dimmed, until at last it opened into a vast room with no floor. Just floating platforms, each one holding a different object. A bell, a mirror, a spool of thread, a candle burning backwards, and in the center, a staircase made of glass. It led to a door, black, smooth, silent. Ellis pointed. "Is that it?" Lynn nodded. "The hinge. What is behind it? Everything that wanted to be," she said, "and everything that could not." Ellis stepped forward. The platforms trembled beneath his feet but did not fall. Lynn followed, never speaking, only watching. When they reached the base of the glass stairs, the black door whispered, a sound like wind through teeth. Ellis raised his hand, then paused. "What happens when I open it? You see the origin," Lynn said, "and decide what to do with it." "Will I come back?" "Not all of you," she said. Ellis placed his hand on the door. It was neither cold nor warm, felt like memory. The door opened inward, and inside was a room filled with clocks, each one ticking, each one labeled with a name. Ezra, Marisol, Theo, Ava, Lynn, Ellis, and beneath each clock, a button. Some had been pressed, others had not. Lynn stepped beside the clock marked with her name. The button beneath it glowed faintly. "What is this?" Ellis whispered. "The snap registry," she said. "Each clock tracks a snapper. Each button ends the thread. Like ending it forever, like choosing silence over fracture," she said. Ellis found his clock. Ticked erratically. Not fast, not slow, just wrong. The button pulsed. "What if I press it?" "You stop," Lynn said. "Completely, not just the snapping," she said. "The echo, the drift, everything. I would be normal." Lynn looked sad. "No, you would be gone." Ellis turned to her. "Have you ever pressed yours?" "Twice," she said. "But I changed my mind. Can I just leave it?" "Yes," she said. "But the ticking gets louder. And one day it drowns out everything else." Ellis looked around. All the names, all the clocks, all the choices made or never made. He stepped back. "Not yet." Lynn nodded. "That is still a choice." The door behind them closed on its own. The glow in the room softened. The ticking slowed. They sat on the glass stairs, neither speaking, just listening, until Ellis asked, "Have you ever met someone who pressed it?" Lynn stared into the mirrors of the clocks. "Yes," she said. "You did, once, but you forgot." The next few days were not normal, but they pretended to be. Ellis went back to school. Lynn sat beside him in class. Teachers taught lessons that Ellis could not focus on. Equations, poems, dates from wars that never touched him. But the clocks in every room ticked wrong. Some sped up, some lagged. One in the music hallway ticked in reverse, then stopped altogether. No one noticed, except them. At lunch, Lynn handed him a folded note. It read, "There are others, still active, still snapping, still drifting." She told him where to go. A part of the city he would never been to. An industrial block filled with empty factories and train lines long out of use. They went together, walked for hours. Then they found it. A door under a bridge. Plain, gray, but humming, like the stillness was stacked behind it, pressing outward. Lynn knocked once. then twice more. A small panel slid open. Eyes looked out, blinking slowly. Then the door opened. Inside, a staircase. Down. Always down. At the bottom, a room lit by candles that did not flicker. People sat on the floor. Some teenagers. Some adults. One old woman with a notebook that wrote itself as she breathed. They all turned to look. One boy stood. "You are him," he said. Ellis did not answer. "You are the snapper who woke the mirror grid," the boy continued. "We felt it." Lynn nodded. "This is Ellis." Murmurs passed through the group. Some looked scared, some hopeful. The boy stepped closer. His hoodie was frayed, his hands stained with ink. "I am Yarrow," he said. "Snapper Class 3. 17 threads counted." Ellis shook his hand. "I did not know we had classes." "Most do not," Yarrow said, "but the ones who survive, they categorize." "How many of us are there?" "Fewer than you think," Yarrow said. "More than we should be." Ellis sat. The group gathered. They began to speak. Share. One girl, Clara, had been snapping since she was 5. Her first snap stopped her parents mid-argument. She liked the silence so much she forgot to let them go. By the time she did, they had forgotten what they were fighting about. But they also forgot her birthday. Every year. Forever. Another, Mackay, snapped once during surgery. Woke up with a scar that spelled his name in reversed letters. "We do not choose this," Mackay said. "It chooses moments when our hearts crack." "But why?" Ellis asked. No one answered. Then the old woman spoke. Her voice was like dust sliding through light. "Because silence is jealous." Everyone turned. "Jealous of what?" Ellis asked. "Of us," she said. "Of our sound. Of our choice. Of our time. What happens if we stop?" "It waits," she said. "It listens. And when enough of us stop, it sings." Ellis did not ask what the song sounded like. He did not want to know. Later, Yarrow showed them the archive. A hidden room deeper underground. Walls lined with cassette tapes, VHS reels, paper scrolls. "This is where we keep the echoes," he said, "before they vanish." He handed Ellis a tape. No label, just a smudge. Ellis held it up. "What is on this, you?" Yarrow said. "Or, one version." They played it. Static. Then Ellis's voice. Older. Tired. "Don't snap. Don't snap. Don't." The tape stopped. Burned itself. Turned to ash in the player. "Some echoes do not like to be remembered," Yarrow said. "How do you live like this?" Ellis asked. "Carefully," Yarrow said. "And with rules." He pointed to a wall filled with them. Rule 14. Never snap while touching glass. Rule 29. If a clock ticks only when you breathe, leave the room. Rule 42. If your echo speaks first, do not reply. Rule 51. If Lynn forgets your name, run. Ellis stared at that one. "What does that mean?" Yarrow looked at Lynn. She did not answer. "How long have you been doing this?" Ellis asked. Yarrow looked older for a moment. "Since before I stopped aging." That night, Ellis dreamt of stairwells. Endless. Spiraling. Each one lined with doors that opened inward. Behind each door, another version of himself. Some sad. Some angry. One sitting in silence with a silver vest. One wearing Lynn's face. All of them turned at once. Reached out. Whispered the same word. Snap. He woke gasping. The mirror under his bed was glowing again. He had not touched it in days. He lifted it. This time it did not show reflections. It showed the library, the floating shelves, and one new book, bound in white thread. On the spine, a single letter. Increment. Lynn entered the room. "Did you see it?" He nodded. "The Delta book." She nodded back. "It is the convergence point of what all your might have beens. And if I open it, you either see too much or nothing, which is safer." "Neither," she said. "But not opening it guarantees one thing. What? He finds you first." Ellis stared at the mirror. "Where is the book?" "Not in the library anymore," she said. "It moved." "To where?" "To a place between." "Between what?" Lynn sat beside him. "Between every echo you did not make." The room was quiet. Not the sharp silence of a snap, but the heavy pause before something falls. I have to go there, do not I? Ellis asked. Yes, she said. You have to see what happens when all your choices echo back. And if I do not come back? Lynn did not smile, but she reached for his hand. Then I will remember you until I can't. Ellis stood at the edge of the threshold that was not there an hour ago. It shimmered at the base of the old tree behind the school, flickering like heat above asphalt. If he blinked, it disappeared. If he stared, it pulsed. Lynn said it would appear when he was ready. He was not sure he was, but the thread around his wrist had begun to unravel on its own. Its fibers stretched toward the shimmer like a compass that had grown tired of pointing. Once you step through, Lynn said, there is no snapping out. Not until it is done. What is on the other side? Your echoes, she said. All of them. The ones that happened. The ones that might have. The ones still waiting. Can they hurt me? Lynn's expression did not change. Only the ones that want to be real. Ellis looked at her one last time. Her sweater was darker now. Her eyes reflected things he had not seen yet. If I do not come back, he asked. I will wait, she said, but not forever. He nodded and stepped through. It was like falling without moving, like turning inside out through something that was not space. Then he landed, softly, on nothing. Around him, the world shimmered, a vast landscape made of broken time. Fragments of rooms floated midair. Hallways twisted into each other. Desks stood in puddles of sky. It looked like a memory that had been shredded and loosely reassembled by a tired librarian. He took a breath. The air smelled like burnt pencils and old echo. In the distance, footsteps, multiple. He turned, saw versions of himself. Dozens, all different. One was older.
Taller.
One was younger, crying. One had no mouth. Another had too many eyes. All of them moved like they were underwater. One stepped forward. You are the newest, it said. Ellis nodded. What is this place? A waiting room, another said. For decisions you have not made yet. Why are you all here? Because you keep snapping, the one with no mouth whispered without sound. And every snap splits a choice, another added. And every choice leaves behind a you. Ellis stepped back. I did not know. You were not supposed to, said the oldest one, but the thread frayed too early. What do I do now? Find the anchor, they said together. Before the man in the silver vest finds it first. The world trembled. A crack spread across the sky. The fragments began to drift apart. Ellis ran, past a version of himself holding a bell, past another painting spirals on a chalkboard, past one lying still, eyes open, watching the stars blink backward. He climbed over a floating stairwell, slid down the roof of a church that had never existed, until he found it. A house, his house, the one from his dream, the kitchen door open, the drawer still stuck. He walked inside. Everything was frozen, except the clock, ticked slowly, in time with his pulse. In the center of the room, a boy, himself, 8 years old, holding the mirror, whole, uncracked. Ellis approached. The boy looked up. You came back, he said. You are me. Ellis said. But you stayed. I had to, the boy said. Someone has to hold the silence. You can let go now. Not yet, the boy said. The man is almost here. He always is. Ellis whispered. He is always almost here. The house flickered. The walls began to peel like film on fire. Outside, a sound like thunder and ticking. The door burst inward. The man in the silver vest stepped inside. But this time, he was not alone. Shadows moved behind him. Not people, not echoes, just outlines of might-have-beens. Choices with teeth. He reached for the boy. Ellis snapped. Hard. The world stilled. But not him. Not the man. Not the boy. This is the 17th minute, the man said. You were not supposed to last this long. I am not letting him go, Ellis said. He is me. That is why you will break, the man replied. Because you still think you are whole. He stepped forward. Lynn appeared in the doorway, her eyes glowing, her shadow flickering like a flame underwater. Leave him, she said. He is already chosen. So have I. The man said, "And I will again." He raised his hand. The thread around Ellis's wrist burned. The mirror shattered in the boy's hands. And time resumed. All at once. Too fast. Too much. Ellis screamed. Lynn grabbed his shoulder. "Anchor," she said. "Find the anchor." Ellis reached into his pocket. Pulled out the last item he had not used. Pencil. From second grade. The one he would thrown when the drawer jammed. He held it up. This was the moment. The world shuddered. The boy reached for it. Touched the pencil. Then vanished. So did the house. So did the echoes. The man in the silver vest smiled. Next time, he whispered. Then faded like breath on glass. Ellis fell. Again. This time slower. Landed in the school hallway. Alone. The clocks were quiet. Not ticking. Not broken. Just resting. Lynn sat on the windowsill. Her eyes tired. "You anchored," she said. "I think so. Then you have got one snap left." Ellis nodded. The mirror in his pocket hummed faintly. The thread wrapped tight. "Whole." For the first time in days, he smiled. "Do I have to use it?" "Not yet," Lynn said. "But eventually. Everyone does." Ellis looked down the hall. Saw his reflection in the trophy case. And for the first time, it smiled at the same time. Tuesday arrived. Or at least, that is what the calendar said. But no one seemed to remember Monday. Not his parents. Not his classmates. Not even the school principal, who stared at the wall clock for a full minute before muttering something about time zones and coffee. Ellis walked through the hallway with a strange chill at the base of his spine. The world felt reset, like a game reloaded mid-move. He whispered to Lynn as they passed the library. "They really do not remember." Lynn shook her head. Time did not move for them. Just skipped. One moment to the next. A clean slice. "But why, you anchored," she said. "And sometimes anchoring comes at a price. Like forgetting a day, like everyone else forgetting you during that day." Ellis blinked. His heart did a slow turn in his chest. "Do you remember me yesterday?" Lynn hesitated. "Not all of it. Just flashes." "So where was I?" Lynn turned to him. "That is the wrong question. The right question is, who was still awake?" They pushed open the doors to the science wing. The hallway stretched longer than it used to. The lockers clicked faintly, a soft ticking that came from nowhere. "I think the world's trying to stabilize," Lynn whispered. "But you have bent it." "Bent it how?" She pointed to the windows. Outside, two suns hovered low in the sky. Not bright, just there, silent. "Wrong. This is what happens when someone forgets to forget," she said. "You brought your echo back, and the world does not know where to place him." "The boy from the house," Ellis whispered. "He is part of me." "He is not," Lynn said. "Not anymore. He is loose now." "Where, I do not know," she said. "But I heard someone humming behind the school's clock tower. And the town skipped a whole Tuesday. That is not a coincidence. They left school early. No one stopped them. Even the teacher who normally tracked attendance was staring at a screen that looped a weather forecast for the same day over and over. Outside, the shadows were longer than the trees, and the birds flew backward. Not fast, just a subtle rewind of wings. The clock tower had not worked in years. It leaned slightly, and the gears inside had long rusted. But when they arrived, it was chiming. A low, hollow sound, repeating in sevens. 7 seconds. 7 chimes. 7 silences. Ellis climbed first. The metal staircase groaned under his weight. Lynn followed. Near the top, the air grew cooler and thicker, like breathing soup or fog. They reached the landing and saw him, the boy, the echo, the version of Ellis who had held the pencil in the kitchen, who had disappeared after anchoring. He stood beside the broken face of the clock, his hands covered in black ink, drawing circles on the wall. "He is not solid," Lynn said. "Look," and she was right. The boy shimmered at the edges. His outline flickered like a bad signal. Ellis stepped closer. "Hey." The boy stopped drawing, turned, smiled. "You came back." "You are me," Ellis said. "No," the boy said. "I am what you left behind. The version that stayed inside the snap too long." "Why are you here?" Because I remember Tuesday, the boy said, and I remember what was supposed to happen. Lynn stepped forward. You should not exist. The anchor was supposed to dissolve you. It did, the boy said. Mostly. Then what are you, adrift, he whispered, an after image. But I am still tethered. And the world is echoing. The sky outside darkened, then brightened, then darkened again. A time loop pulse. If you stay, the boy said, I will grow stronger. Because you are the original. And originals leak. So what happens now, Ellis asked. You have to unmake me, the boy said, with the final snap. But if I do that, you will forget everything, the boy finished. Lynn, the rules, the maps, the echoes, it all goes. There is no other way, Lynn said nothing. She just stared at the boy with a look Ellis could not place. Pity, recognition, regret, why do I have to be the one? Ellis asked. Because you are the only one who stayed whole, the boy said. All the others fractured, snapped too many times, echoed until they were not real anymore. Ellis turned to Lynn. What would you do? She blinked slowly. I already made my choice, she said. Years ago, I kept the drift alive. That is why I am still here. You are adrift? Ellis whispered. Lynn nodded. I was the first blink. The girl in the photo. 1994. But you are my age. Because memory bends differently in silence, she said. I did not know who I was until you snapped the third time. So this has all been real, she said. But soft. Ellis looked at the boy. The echo. The version of himself painting loops on the wall of the broken tower. If I do not snap, Ellis said, then the world will keep folding, the boy answered. More missing days, more broken clocks. Eventually you will unmake the present. And the silence wins. If I do snap, Ellis said, I lose you. And Lynn, the boy said, because she is part of the drift. No drift survives the final snap. The tower trembled. A distant chime rang in reverse. The boy stepped closer. I am not scared, he said. You should not be either. Ellis raised his hand. Lynn reached for it. Wait, she said. Just one more second. He gave it. One more second. To look at her. To remember the lines of her eyes. To see the thread flicker on her wrist. And then he snapped. The snap was not loud. It was soft, like a page turning in an empty library. But the world felt it. The air folded. The sky paused. Time curled inward like a leaf touched by flame. Ellis stood in the clock tower. Alone. The boy, his echo, was gone. So was the chalk on the wall. The shimmer at the edges of the sky. The weight in the floor. Lynn was gone too. Not violently. Not erased. Just folded away, like she had been a bookmark in a story he was not allowed to finish. He did not cry. Not yet. Instead he listened. To silence. Real silence. The kind that did not pulse. That did not watch. That did not whisper. The silence after a song ends. A moment of nothing between the applause and the next breath. The clock tower groaned. Just once. Then the clocks began to tick again. All of them. Everywhere. Unified. In sync. No more drifting. No more looping. Just time. Moving forward. Ellis descended the stairs slowly. Every step sounded right again. No echoes. No shadows that did not match. Outside, the sky held one sun. The streets were clear. The birds flew forward. A girl walked past him on the sidewalk, chewing gum and humming a tune. He knew it. A lullaby Lynn had once hummed in her sleep. He stopped, turned. Hey, he called. She looked back, confused. Do I know you? She asked. Maybe, Ellis said. You remind me of someone. Everyone says that, she laughed, then walked on. The red thread around Ellis's wrist was gone. In its place, a faint scar. A single line curled in a spiral. He did not go back to school. Not that week. Not that month. He walked the city, checked the clocks, sat in the library and listened to the pages breathe. He even visited the old stairwell. It was gone, replaced with storage closets and janitor supplies. But when he leaned close to the wall, he swore he could still hear a ticking, a soft echo. One afternoon, he sat on the rooftop of the gym and opened the last page of his notebook. Only one line remained, written in handwriting that was not his. Or maybe it was. Sometimes the only way to hold on is to let go. Ellis closed the book, watched the clouds. They moved like they were supposed to, but part of him knew. Somewhere in the world, a new snapper was being born. Maybe it was someone skipping rocks by a lake. Maybe it was someone yelling at a jammed door. Maybe it was someone waking from a dream they did not understand. He would never know, but that was okay. Some stories are meant to end softly. That night he dreamed of Lynn. They sat on the glass staircase, watching the mirrors shimmer. She looked at him and said nothing, just smiled. And for once that was enough. The next morning he did not snap. Not because he could not, but because he did not need to. Days passed, or perhaps it was weeks. Ellis could not tell anymore, not because time was breaking, but because it had finally gone back to being invisible. No more bending hallways. No more clocks ticking in rhythms that did not belong. The air felt soft, like velvet, not velvet silence, but the ordinary kind. The kind that let you think without being listened to. He still carried the notebook, worn now, filled with rules, maps, names, symbols, sketches. He kept a pencil tucked inside its binding. Not for snapping, just for writing. One evening, he found himself walking past the old library. The one in the city center. It used to be closed for renovation. Today, the doors were open. No fanfare, no crowds, just open. He stepped inside. Everything smelled of old books and forgotten weather. The librarian, a man with no visible age, nodded once and pointed to the left wing. Ellis did not ask questions. He walked where he was guided. A single room waited. Circular, wooden shelves. No spiral staircases. No floating pages. Just a reading table and a lone book, resting in the middle, bound in white thread. The spine bore no number, no title, just a single triangle. Increment. Ellis did not reach for it. He sat, watched it. The thread glowed softly. His notebook vibrated. He opened it. A new sentence had written itself. You remembered, so it remembered too. He placed the notebook beside the white threaded book. Waited. Nothing happened. And that was the point. No shifts. No shimmers. No echoes. Just stillness. Not the kind that threatens. The kind that resolves. The book pulsed once. Ellis reached out. Touched it. This time it did not open to pages. It opened to images. Moving. Soundless. Memories from before the snaps. His mother brushing his hair. His father dropping his keys. The goldfish swimming in a bowl that did not freeze. Lynn on the rooftop, smiling. A boy in the clock tower whispering you came back. They were not echoes. They were not drifts. They were his. All of them. The book closed gently. Ellis stood. Took the book. Not to keep. Just to hold. And as he turned to leave, the librarian spoke without moving his lips. The silence sleeps. For now. Ellis nodded. He stepped outside. The sky was a soft blue. A breeze played with his jacket. He did not feel watched, or followed, or fragmented. The scar on his wrist no longer itched. Felt like punctuation. That night, he walked past the old school, now under renovation. Kids played in the field. Someone threw a ball. It paused for a split second mid-air. Ellis did not panic. He watched, waited. The moment resumed. Just a flicker, a hiccup, maybe coincidence, maybe not. But he did not snap. Instead, he walked on, toward a world that might forget him, or might not. He no longer needed to be remembered by time, because now he remembered time itself, its weight, the shape, the silence, and its song. It started with a crack on his wrist. Not loud, not painful, just a hair-thin line that appeared beneath the skin, glowing faintly beneath the surface like a thread made of starlight. Ellis noticed it one morning as he reached for a book. The scar from the red thread had split. Not deep, but different. A vein of time, bleeding light. He touched it. Nothing hurt, but he knew. Something had restarted. He spent the day watching for signs. The clock still ticked correctly. The sky held only one sun. The streets did not bend. But people seemed off. A man crossed the street 3 times, each time forgetting why. A child asked what day it was, only to repeat the question seconds later. The cashier handed him change before he paid. Ellis did not snap. He listened, and the silence began to hum again, not in warning, in curiosity. That evening, he sat beneath the lamppost where he had first felt something was wrong all those weeks ago. The pole still had his initials scratched into it from years before. E+. Back then he had not known who the other half would be. Now he was not sure it had ever been one person. Maybe it was all of them. Every echo, every version. All watching, waiting, whispering. His wrist pulsed. The crack widened, not physically, temporally. Time slid beneath his skin, folding in on itself. He saw images that had not happened yet. Lynn opening a door she would never touched. The man in the vest sitting on a train that moved backward through snow. A version of Ellis much older, staring into a mirror without reflection. He stood quickly. The world snapped into focus. Nothing had changed, but everything had shifted. At home, the mirror under his bed was gone. In its place, a note, written in pencil. Don't look for me. Let the silence sleep. Below it, a tiny drawing. A bell. The old bell Lynn once used to buy a page. He carried the note with him for days. Then one morning he saw her. Across the street. Not older. Not different. Just there. Lynn. In a blue coat this time. Hair shorter. She walked past him like she did not know his name. And maybe she did not. Maybe she was not his Lynn. Maybe she was someone else's. Another version. Another drift. But she turned. Just once. Looked at him. Blinked. Slowly. Then smiled. It was not recognition. It was not invitation. It was permission. He did not follow. He did not need to. That night, he stood in front of the mirror in his room. Not the one that had disappeared. A regular one. The kind that showed your face and nothing else. He looked at himself. Still 16. Still haunted. But whole. Until the crack on his wrist glowed again. A second line appeared. Not alongside the first. Through it. Intersecting. Crossing. He traced it with his finger. Felt warm. Then cold. Then silent. He sat down. Opened his notebook. Most of the pages were full now. Some had bled ink into each other. Others had torn. But the last page was blank. He wrote, "Something is coming. I do not know what, but I am not afraid. I have seen the edges. I have heard the hum. I have remembered the first silence. And I know how to listen now." He closed the book. Set it beside his bed. The next morning the crack was gone. Both of them, replaced by a circle. Faint, like a seal, or a clock face without hands. And for the first time, the silence inside him felt content. Not asleep. Not angry. Just still. Waiting. They told stories about a place beneath the lake. Not underwater. Beneath. As if the lake floated on top of something older, something heavier. Most people dismissed it. Said the lake was only 5 feet at its deepest, perfect for skipping stones, not for hiding secrets. But Ellis knew better. The rumors had returned. Whispers in class. A janitor who claimed the fish swam in circles around a hole that was not there last week. A teacher who forgot how she would gotten from her car to the front door. Even the librarian mentioned dreams of staircases made of dripping wood. So he went. One Saturday morning. Alone. He left his phone at home. Took only the notebook, a flashlight, and a pebble Lynn had given him months ago. He had not believed her. Until now. The lake was calm. Still. Too still. Birds flew above it but never landed. The water was flat as glass. Not a ripple. Not a breath. Ellis stepped to the edge and waited. Nothing happened. Until he turned away. Then the pebble glowed. Pale blue. Faint as a thought. He turned back. The lake remained the same. But he knelt, touched the surface. It gave way. Like syrup. Not cold. Not warm. Just yielding. He stepped forward. sank without sinking, fell without falling, and landed in a corridor lined with shelves. A library, beneath the lake. The air was dry, dustless, as if it had been sealed in memory. Books floated in midair, some closed, some wide open. Pages fluttered without wind. At the far end, a podium. On it, the Delta book, white-threaded, still unread. A voice echoed, "You should not be here again." He turned. The man in the silver vest stood near a spiral staircase that led upward. "I anchored," Ellis said. "I ended my echo." "Did you?" the man asked. "You only think you did. Then why is the thread gone?" "Because you burned it," he said. "But even ash leaves stains." Ellis stepped closer to the book. "I need to know. What was erased?" The man smiled. "You were." Ellis paused. "What, in this version you were never born?" "Not really. You exist between versions. A stitch, patch, placeholder." Ellis's hands trembled. "Then why am I here?" "Because the library remembers everything, even the things it should not." The man stepped aside. "Open it, if you must." Ellis approached. The book pulsed. He touched it. The pages did not turn. They unraveled, became light, spilled upward into the air. Images formed. Lynn on a rooftop. Lynn as a child. Lynn dissolving in the clock tower. Then a mirror, cracked, holding a different reflection. Not his. A girl. Not Lynn, but similar. Wearing a vest of copper. Holding a pencil. Whispering. "He chose me." The light spun faster. Showed versions of Ellis snapping in protest. Snapping in grief. Snapping just to hear the sound. And one version. Silent. Watching. Never snapping. Just listening. That one reached out. Grabbed the others. Pulled them inward. And vanished. The book snapped shut. Ellis gasped. The man stepped forward. "Do you understand now?" "No." "Good," the man said. "That means you still have a choice." "What choice?" "To leave it alone," the man said. "Or to keep searching." Ellis backed away. "I do not want to forget again." "Then write it down," the man said. He handed Ellis a new notebook. Blank. Soft. Bound in cloth. This time, no echoes. "Just you." "Why help me?" Ellis asked. "Because I used to be you," the man said, "until I snapped one too many times. And now I guard the things that should not be found." He turned. Began to climb the stairs. "Wait," Ellis called. "If I do not snap again." "Does this all stay?" The man paused. "Nothing stays, but you can choose what to carry." Then he was gone. The library dimmed. The shelves faded. The water above rippled. And Ellis rose, floated up like a breath held too long. He broke the surface quietly. The lake was unchanged. Still flat, still silent, but something in the air had shifted. The pebble had stopped glowing. The notebook in his hand was still blank, but it hummed, faintly, like it was waiting. That night he wrote a single sentence. "Under the lake the world remembers," then closed the cover and did not open it again for a long time. The classroom was unusually warm that day. Not stuffy, just warm. The kind of warmth that made time feel slower, softer, like the minutes were being wrapped in wool. Ellis sat near the window, staring at the chalkboard where numbers twisted lazily across equations that refused to stay still. His teacher's voice was distant, a gentle drone, like a fan in another room. Outside, the sky was pale, not cloudy, not bright, just undecided. That was when he noticed the hourglass on the corner of the teacher's desk. It had not been there before. A small thing, copper-rimmed. The sand inside moved upward. Ellis blinked. No one else seemed to notice. He raised his hand. "Miss," the teacher did not respond. Neither did the students. They were frozen, mid-blink, mid-breath, mid-thought, and he had not even snapped. He stood, walked around the room. The girl in front of him had 3 pens floating above her desk, suspended like jellyfish. The boy to the left had spilled water mid-pour. It hung there, a crystalline arc. Ellis touched it. It did not burst, just wobbled, then reformed. "This is not mine," he whispered. "This is not my pause." Then who had done it? A creak from the hallway. He stepped into it. The lights were out. The lockers breathed slightly, like the whole school had become something alive. Further down the corridor, footsteps. Soft, measured. Ellis followed. Past the trophies. Past the music room where the piano keys pressed themselves. At the very end of the hall, the janitor's closet. The door was open. Inside stood a girl. Not Lynn. Not anyone he recognized. She was younger, maybe 12, wearing an oversized hoodie. Her eyes were closed, and she was humming. A low tune, ancient, familiar, like something buried in bone. "Are you the one pausing this?" Ellis asked. The girl opened her eyes. They were completely silver. "No," she said, "you are." But I did not snap. "You do not have to anymore," she said. "You have become the hum." "What does that mean?" "It means the pause listens to you now, even when you are silent." She reached behind her, held out a deck of cards. Not playing cards. Something older, thicker, painted by hand. "Pick one." Ellis hesitated, then pulled a card. The image showed a doorway, with no building, just the door standing in the field, and behind it stars. "What is this?" "It is where you will go next," the girl said. "When you are ready." "Why me?" She tilted her head. "Because you stopped stopping people. That is the first rule. You changed the story." He felt his fingers tremble. The card was warm, pulsed slightly. "What if I do not want to go?" "Then it will wait," she said. "But not forever. Doors hate waiting." She closed her hand. The hallway flickered. Students began to stir. Voices returned. The lights buzzed. Time started again. Ellis stood alone. The girl was gone. The card was still in his hand. He slipped it into his pocket. That night he could not sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the door, just standing there, in the middle of a wheat field. The stars behind it shimmered like promises. He did not open the notebook. He did not snap. He just waited, and waited, until morning came, and the sky outside was no longer pale, but pulsing, like it was breathing, like it was waking up too. Ellis stood at the edge of town. The streetlights flickered behind him. Ahead, the world opened into fields that had not been tilled in years. The grass was high, not wild, just forgotten. In his hand, the card still pulsed with faint warmth. The door from the illustration did not exist yet, but the space where it would be, that empty plot beneath the power lines, felt different now. The wind here did not hum. It listened. He did not know what made him come. He had not snapped his fingers in weeks. Hadn't needed to. The world paused on its own sometimes, at least for him. But tonight, something felt final. Something felt like a thread being pulled. He walked forward, past the fence, into the wheat that had grown waist-high. And there it was, just as the card had shown. A door, freestanding, wooden frame, no hinges, no handle, just a keyhole. Of course, he whispered. A lock with no key. But he had a key, not a real one. A memory, from the library, from the lake, from every version of himself that had tried to erase or understand or change what had been written. He reached into his pocket, pulled out Lynn's pebble. It did not glow anymore, but when he held it near the keyhole, the wood clicked softly. The door swung open, not backward, not forward. It opened inward, as if the air itself parted. On the other side, the same field, but under a different sky, deep purple, with stars he did not recognize, and sounds, not loud, but alive. He stepped through. The moment his foot crossed the threshold, the card in his pocket crumbled, turned to ash. The notebook vibrated, then went still. He did not look back. He could not. The door had vanished. He was standing in a place that looked like home but was not. The town in the distance shimmered slightly, as if drawn in pencil, and someone had started erasing the edges. A figure stood nearby, not Lynn, but familiar. A boy, 13, wearing the same cardigan Ellis had worn last fall. Freckles, thoughtful eyes. But it was not a mirror. It was someone else. A version. The boy nodded, said nothing, then walked away. Ellis followed, down a road that curved toward the town. No cars, just birds circling low. The buildings were taller, sleeker, made of metal and glass that bent the sky. He passed a window and saw himself, not quite right, too tall, eyes wrong color, aversion. He kept walking. People did not freeze, but they did not speak either. They looked at him with recognition, not as if they knew him, but as if they would been waiting. He reached the town square. A clock tower stood there, different from the one Lynn had disappeared into. This one had no hands, only a circle of glass, spinning slowly. A crowd stood beneath it, watching, waiting. In the center, a chair, and in it an old woman, Lynn, but aged, hair gray, eyes still fire. She looked up, smiled. "You took your time," she said. "I had to forget a few things," Ellis replied. "That is how we remember the important parts," she said. She held out her hand. He took it. Her fingers were cold. "Why am I here? Because the story needed an ending," she said. "But not the one they wrote." "And what is next?" he asked. She pointed to the sky. It shimmered, open like a page turning. Inside, nothing, and everything. A map, a diagram, a heartbeat. "Write your own," she whispered. He looked down. The notebook was open, empty again. He pulled the pencil from his sleeve, began to write, not with words, with moments, with memories, with the feeling of time collapsing and expanding and pausing all at once. As he wrote, the square faded. The crowd vanished. Lynn became mist. Only the clock remained, spinning, spinning, until it did not. The glass cracked, and through it light poured, not harsh, gentle, a lullaby of brightness. It wrapped around him like warmth, like sleep, like a mother humming in the dark. Ellis did not snap his fingers. He did not need to. The world paused on its own, not to stop, but to rest, just for a moment. And now everything slows. The sky above Ellis softens into a haze of lavender and silver. The door, the notebook, the clock, they no longer matter. What remains is the stillness. The knowing that even when stories twist, when timelines spiral, when doors appear in forgotten fields, there is always a thread that leads back to you. You do not have to snap your fingers to pause the world anymore. Just close your eyes. Let your breath settle into its rhythm. Let the quiet wrap around you like a favorite blanket, warm, worn in, waiting. Maybe somewhere out there, in a town like yours or a field you have never walked, a boy is still writing his story. Maybe he is writing yours too. But for now, there are no choices to make, no echoes to chase, no timelines to unravel. Only this moment, only rest. Drift gently. Let the hum of the air and the pulse of the story lull you further. Let go of today's sharp corners. Let the unknown become soft. Let the lights fade one by one until only the hush of night remains. This is your time to pause, to breathe, to sleep. And if you dream of doors, of notebooks, of boys who can freeze time, do not be afraid. It just means your story is still unfolding. Quiet now. Let it wait.